After rescuing his daughter from the hands of dangerous kidnappers, Bumpy Johnson finally believed the worst was behind him. For days, fear had consumed him. Every second had felt like an eternity, every moment filled with uncertainty and pain. But now, as he watched his daughter safe at home, surrounded by family, he allowed himself something he had not felt in a long time: peace. For a man like Bumpy, peace was rare. His life in Harlem had always been filled with danger, betrayal, and enemies hiding in every shadow. He had built his empire through strength, intelligence, and fear. People respected his name. Many feared it. Few dared challenge him. And after what happened to his daughter, no one would blame him for believing that his enemies had finally learned their lesson. His home felt different now, quieter, safer. His wife moved through the house with calm strength, trying to restore normal life after days of chaos. She had always been the steady force in his world, the one person, and who could calm his anger, silence his fears, and remind him there was more to life than power. She had stood beside him through every storm, never asking for anything except his love and his promise to keep their family safe. That promise weighed heavily on him. As evening settled over Harlem, Bumpy sat alone in his office, reflecting on everything they had survived. The city outside was unusually quiet. The streets that once echoed with whispers of fear had gone still. His men had reported no new threats, no unusual movement, no signs of retaliation. For the first time, it seemed the nightmare was truly over. But deep inside, something felt wrong. The men who kidnapped his daughter had been too organized, too bold. They had known too much about his family, his routines, his weaknesses. It had not felt like a random act. It felt like part of something bigger, something unfinished. Bumpy tried to ignore the feeling. He looked at a photograph on his desk, his wife smiling, his daughter, her. It was one of the few things that reminded him why he fought so hard. Not for power, not for control, but for them. Then the phone rang. Its sharp sound cut through the silence like a warning. Bumpy answered immediately. At first there was only silence, then a voice. Cold, calm, unfamiliar. You thought it was over. Bumpy's body went still. You saved your daughter, but can you save your wife? The line went dead. For a moment he couldn't breathe. The peace he had just begun to feel vanished instantly. His heart pounded as he rushed from his office, fear gripping him once again. He knew in that instant, the nightmare wasn't over. It had only just begun. As Bumpy Johnson raced through the dark streets of Harlem, his mind was consumed by fear. The words from the mysterious phone call echoed in his head again and again. You saved your daughter, but can you save your wife? His hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, his heart pounding harder with every second. He had already lived through the nightmare of losing his daughter. He could not endure another loss. Not her. Not the woman who had stood beside him through every battle of his life. When he finally reached home, something felt wrong immediately. The front door was slightly open. Lights inside flickered. The silence was unsettling. Bumpy stepped inside cautiously, his eyes scanning every corner. Furniture was overturned. A lamp lay shattered on the floor. One of the chairs had been knocked over. There were clear signs of a struggle. His wife was gone. For a moment, Bumpy stood frozen. The house that had once been filled with warmth now felt empty and cold. He called her name, moving from room to room, hoping for an answer, but only silence answered him. Then he saw it. A single envelope placed neatly on the dining table. His hands trembled as he opened it. Inside was a short message. You were never the target. We wanted you to feel pain. The words hit harder than any bullet ever could. This wasn't about money. It wasn't about territory. This wasn't even about revenge in the usual sense. Someone wanted to destroy him emotionally. They wanted to watch him suffer. Bumpy's breathing grew heavy. Memories of his wife filled his mind, her gentle voice, her quiet strength, the way she always believed there was still good inside him. Even when the world only saw a crime boss, she had always asked him one thing: to protect the family. And now, despite all his power, he had failed. But sorrow quickly turned to anger. Whoever had done this had crossed the final line. Without wasting another second, Bumpy called his most trusted men. Within minutes, Harlem was alive again. Cars moved through the streets. Informants were awakened. Old debts were called in. Every contact, every connection, every ally was given one mission: find her. As the city responded, Bumpy began piecing together what this meant. This kidnapping was different from his daughter's. Was personal. Planned. Precise. Someone knew exactly how to hurt him. Then another message arrived through one of his men. A simple sentence: you took something from us. Now we take everything from you. Bumpy understood. This was connected to the men who had taken his daughter. Someone had survived. Someone had returned for revenge. And this time, they weren't asking for anything. They wanted him broken. But they had forgotten one thing. A father's fear had already made Bumpy dangerous. Now, a husband's love would make him unstoppable. As the search for his wife began, Bumpy Johnson could feel the pressure building all around him. The streets of Harlem were once again filled with whispers, fear, and uncertainty. Only days earlier, he had rescued his daughter and believed his family was finally safe. Now, a new nightmare had begun, and this one felt even darker. This time, the enemy was not asking for money or power. They were trying to break his spirit. Bumpy gathered his most trusted men in a private room, the air thick with smoke and tension. Every face around the table carried the same seriousness. They all understood what was at stake. His wife was not just part of his family, she was the heart of it. Losing her would mean losing the only piece he had left in his life. Maps were spread across the table. Names were spoken. Every possible enemy was discussed. Bumpy's mind raced through old conflicts, past betrayals, and forgotten grudges. He knew someone out there had planned this carefully. Someone had watched his family. Someone had waited for the perfect moment to strike. His men moved quickly. Cars filled the streets. Trusted informants visited every nightclub, every alley, and every hidden corner of Harlem. No rumor was ignored. No lead was dismissed. Every second mattered. But Bumpy could not ignore the fear growing inside him. His wife had always been his anchor. In a world filled with violence and darkness, she was the one person who reminded him of who he was before power changed him. She had always warned him that one day his enemies might stop coming for him and start coming for those he loved. That day had arrived. As reports came in, none of them brought good news. No witnesses, no ransom demand, no clear signs of where she had been taken. It was as if she had vanished into the night. Then one of his men brought him something unexpected, a small necklace. It belonged to his wife. It had been found in an abandoned alley several blocks from their home. Bumpy held it tightly in his hand, anger burning inside him. This was not just evidence. It was a message. The kidnappers wanted him to know they were close. They wanted him to feel helpless. For a moment, Bumpy closed his eyes and remembered his wife's words. Power can protect many things, but not always the people you love. He had ignored that truth for too long. But not anymore. Suddenly another lead came in. A witness claimed to have seen a black car speeding away from his home the night of the kidnapping. The car had been seen heading toward the industrial edge of Harlem. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Bumpy stood up and looked at his men. His voice was calm, cold, deadly. Tonight, we stop searching. We hunt. And somewhere in the darkness, the people who had taken his wife were about to learn a terrifying truth. A husband fighting for the woman he loves can be far more dangerous than any gangster. As Bumpy Johnson and his men moved through the dark streets of Harlem, the city itself seemed to hold its breath. Every alley, every abandoned building, every shadow could be hiding the answer he was looking for. The clue about the black car had given him direction, but not certainty. Somewhere on the industrial edge of Harlem, his wife was waiting, and every passing minute increased the danger she faced. The convoy of cars moved silently through the night. Headlights cut through the fog as Bumpy sat in the front NT seat, his eyes fixed ahead, his mind focused on only one thing: bringing his wife home. His anger was no longer wild. It had become something colder, sharper, more dangerous. The kidnappers wanted him desperate. They wanted him afraid. Instead, they had awakened a level of determination they could never understand. When they reached the abandoned warehouse district, the streets were deserted. Broken windows stared down like empty eyes. Rusted gates creaked in the wind. The entire area felt abandoned by time itself. Bumpy stepped out of the car and signaled his men to spread out. Every movement was careful. Every sound mattered. Then he heard it. A faint noise. A scream. His wife's voice. It came from one of the farthest warehouses. Without hesitation, Bumpy moved toward it, gun in hand. His men followed closely behind. The heavy warehouse door was slightly open. Inside, darkness swallowed everything. As they entered, flashlights cut through the shadows. Wooden crates, Brock, and machinery. Long, empty corridors. And then a voice echoed from above. "You came faster than we expected." Bumpy looked up. A man stood on the second level, hidden partially in shadow. His face was unfamiliar, but his voice carried hatred. "You took my brother from me when you saved your daughter." Now Bumpy understood. This was revenge from the past. One of the kidnappers had survived, and now he wanted Bumpy to feel the same pain. "Your wife is alive," the man said calmly. "For now." Bumpy's jaw tightened. "Let her go." The man laughed. "No. First, I want you to feel what helplessness truly feels like." Suddenly, lights flooded the warehouse. There she was, tied to a chair on the upper platform. Weak, terrified, but alive. Their eyes met. and for a moment, everything else disappeared. Bumpy could see the fear in her face, but also trust. She believed he would save her. He had to. Then gunmen appeared from every direction. The trap had been set. Bumpy's men raised their weapons. The warehouse became silent. One wrong move could end everything. Bumpy slowly lowered his gun. His wife shook her head, tears in her eyes. She knew what he was doing. He was surrendering himself to save her. But deep inside, Bumpy had another plan. And as the enemy smiled, believing they had finally broken him, they failed to realize one thing. Bumpy Johnson never walked into a trap without preparing his own escape. As the tension inside the warehouse reached its breaking point, Bumpy Johnson stood completely still, his eyes locked on his wife. He was tied to a chair on the upper platform, frightened but alive. Around him, armed men waited for his next move, their fingers resting on their triggers. The enemy believed they had won. They believed Bumpy had finally been broken, but they had underestimated him. Slowly, Bumpy lowered his hands, pretending to surrender. His men followed his lead, lowering their weapons one by one. The kidnapper smiled, stepping closer to Bumpy's wife, enjoying the fear he believed he had created. He wanted Bumpy to feel powerless. He wanted him to watch and suffer. But Bumpy's mind was already moving ahead. Before entering the warehouse, he had quietly sent two of his most trusted men around the back of the building. Hidden in the darkness above, they were now moving silently through the upper levels, searching for the perfect moment to strike. Bumpy had walked into the trap, but only because he intended to turn it into his enemy's final mistake. The kidnapper stepped forward and pointed his weapon directly at Bumpy. "Now you understand what pain feels like," he said. Bumpy said nothing. He simply looked at his wife. Their eyes met, and in that silent moment, she understood. He had a plan. Then everything happened at once. A loud crash echoed from above. One of Bumpy's hidden men attacked a guard on the upper platform. Gunfire exploded throughout the warehouse. Chaos. Shouting. Men fall. Ing. Bumpy moved instantly. He lunged toward the nearest attacker, disarming him with brutal force. His men opened fire, using the confusion to take control of the lower floor. Smoke filled the air. Wooden crates shattered. Bullets struck metal beams, sending sparks into the darkness. Above, his wife screamed. The kidnapper grabbed her, pressing a gun to her head as he backed toward the edge of the platform. "Stop, or she dies." Everything froze. Bumpy raised his hand. Silence returned. His breathing slowed. His voice was calm. "You've already lost." The man laughed nervously. "No, not until I make you suffer." But he had made one mistake. He had looked away. For just 1 second. Long enough. Bumpy's wife, stronger than anyone expected, suddenly drove her foot backward into the kidnapper's leg. He stumbled. Bumpy fired. One shot. The weapon fell from the man's hand. His men rushed forward, overpowering him instantly. Bumpy ran up the stairs. When he reached his wife, he dropped to his knees and untied her trembling hands. Tears filled both their eyes. For a moment, the world outside disappeared. No crime, no enemies, no Harlem, only love. He pulled her into his arms and held her tightly. "You're safe now," he whispered. And for the first time in days, peace returned. But Bumpy Johnson knew one truth more clearly than ever. Anyone who touched his family would learn the same lesson: a husband's love can be more powerful than fear itself.